allows me to separate from, otherwise I just be in the shed every night, I think.
Yeah.
It's just hopeless.
How much time do you need to put into them after a meeting?
Uh, I don't know. It depends on how fussy you are. Um, I am probably a good way to put it is extremely particular. It probably only, I don't know, maybe Sunday, like big thing is I always like to watch Sunday, no matter what. And then probably like couple nights come out here in the week. If you're just doing like general maintenance and stuff like that, it's probably like for me only like 2 4 hour nights a week. And then um like if you're racing back to back weekends, then you sort of clean Sunday. Um More often than not, I'll probably do a majority of my maintenance on Monday, and then Tuesday or Thursday I'll come back out and do all the final checks, square block, all that sort of stuff, and then load Friday ready for Saturday. Um, but it adjusts. Like if we got to travel, then um, we'll probably load Thursday night somewhere around there, and then head off Friday if it's a distance away.
Yeah. Do you like the travel?
Yeah, I really like I've sort of grown up where my family always traveled. Like when we started in speedway karting, we traveled. Like we'd have weekends where we would race. Uh, it would either be we'd race Mildura Saturday night. We'd drive through the night to Melbourne, race in Melbourne Sunday night, and drive home Sunday night to go to school Monday morning. And um, like or we would drive down Friday night and race Saturday in one part of Melbourne, then Sunday in the other part of Melbourne, and then drive home Sunday. And like my old man absolutely loves the traveling side of it, and so like we go to Toowoomba, and he was so excited to go to Toowoomba title one time that instead of taking your time and going up there, we pretty sure we went from Mildura to Toowoomba. We drove all the way through, just did not stop. We were supposed to stop, and so then we got there like way too early, and we just had to sit around the motel room for ages. And but yeah, like it was good fun. You always make good memories traveling.
Yeah.
That the best bit about it is you can go away and like whether it takes you a few days or whatnot. Like we raced in Darwin and we like for carts and cruise up there and stop at all the cool little locations and sort of make a bit of a holiday out of it and then come home or um, went up for the NT title last year for wingless and Normie and Naomi forgot to what just I don't know, just technology gets away from people sometimes and forgot to download all their music. And so all the way up to Alice Springs, we listened to the same Keith Urban album all the way to Alice Springs and back again. Wasn't until about like Port Augusta where we got to on the way back where we got to listen to something different. Um, Even then, it was just like the cricket or something that normally wanted to listen to.
Yeah. So you started in dirt carts or just regular?
Yeah, I started in dirt carts. So we we originally had motorbikes and just typical camping and just on motorbikes, and then uh we went to a motocross track one day, and um Dad, I remember vividly we were there, and this guy's like, "Oh, we're just gonna spend like big dollars on your kid. He's not gonna go anywhere."
Yeah.
And Dad's like, "Ah, shoot, well that's done." So we just kept camping, and then it wasn't until I come across a kid who I went to school with, and he raced a dirt cart, and then I was like, "Oh yeah, like go out and crew for him." And then because like my whole family's been into racing, like our uncle Greg Gardner, he raced Fink not long ago, and like just all my cousins race, and one of my other cousins, Thai guy for Veerley, and Dad used to race, and it's just always been it was inevitable, really.
Yeah.
Um, and so yeah, I went and crewed with this guy, and then I come home that night, and I was like, "Dad, we gotta get a car, we gotta do this." I was like, "I'm gonna be a sprint car driver." Like,
So what was that track?
it was Olympic Park in Mildura, so
Yeah.
it's a solo bike track there.
Yeah.
That's where they race the dirt carts,
Right.
and um, yeah, it was only like a really pretty small club at the time, and I actually remember. Actually, sorry, I probably shouldn't have skipped on it, but our cousins down South Penola, they had a kid come out one time, and he had a dirt cart, but he raced the ADCA style. Um,
I don't know
And
anything about karts because there's like 400 million categories of them. So
oh,
that
isn't it? The 400 million categories, everything. Um, so ADCA's like your circuit type. That's predominantly huge in SA. Like,
the dirt circuit
yeah,
stuff, right?
dirt circuit. And so they call it ADCA, and um, that's like massive.
Yeah,
At the moment, like they're getting like 400 carts to a weekend. That is like incredible. And so they had that, and we had this kid come out, and I had a steer, and I was like, oh, it's pretty cool. And so we actually seen that they were on, and we went out and watched it in Mildura, and didn't think anything of it really. And then it wasn't until I come across this kid at school that I was like, oh well, this is the way I'm going to become a sprint car driver, because like we're always going to the classic and always going to speedway and stuff like that. And so dad, yeah, we scrolled through eBay, um, ended up finding like this old, I think it was an Arrow cart. Um, just had the old big boxy pods on it, and Dad's like, "Oh, we'll give it a go and see how we do." And went out there, and it was pretty horrendous. It was not that great. Uh, and then we had a pretty rough start. We sort of luckily, fortunately, had a few other people around us that could help out, and one of Dad's old people he used to work for was right into go karting and stuff, and or bitumen go karting, and so he sort of gave us a bit of a helping hand. Our first sort of big meeting, we did night one, and then we took it and we were pressure washing the cart and ended up pressure washing all the electronic boxes and stuff out. And so got to the track on the second day and I think wouldn't start, and I was like, ah. And then Dad's boss brought down another engine and put that on, and then went out in the first heat race, and it was a bit wet, and obviously being new to it, you just, I don't know, just foot to the floor, and it just span out and ended up locking the right front wheel in the pod because the pods were too long for the cart. So then here we are after that heat race, hacking off like this pods to try and make them smaller so I can't lock it up. And yeah, ended up, that was pretty average night. And then we slowly just did more and more, and then uh, my little brother started a little while after me, and sort of just become a family thing where just dad, my brother, and I just did it. And then we were getting better and better, and went up to Toowoomba, and we ran up the front with like some pretty serious guys, like some guys from Sydney. I don't know whether you know like the Gearings
yeah.
from Sydney. So they were in karting with us, and like it was quite funny. We just went up and we just had like old arrows, and just a mole mechanic from Mildura was doing our engines and stuff like that. And they ended up Craig Gearing come over because we're giving Todd and I were doing pretty well against his kids, and Craig like said to Dad, I was standing there next to the car cleaning it or something, and he's like, your boys do all right, and Dad's like, yeah, we do not bad. And he's like, oh, how much are your carts worth? And Dad's like, oh, I think that one's $600, and that one's, I don't know, about, I think Dad paid like $800 for it with a like pretty decent engine at the time. And Craig just like laughed at us, and he's like, oh, the micron on my kid's dash is worth $800. And I was like, that was probably a massive eye-opening experience. It's like, literally some people are really willing to put in some cash for this. And um, so then we started to take it a bit more seriously, and we got, I ended up getting a new cart off a bloke who raced AdCare, and we we swung past. That was a pretty long trip because we went from Mildura and went through SA to Melbourne, and then we stayed at the bloke's house. And he just lived in a townhouse, so we're out in the middle of the street trying to change all the running gear over onto this new chassis that we just bought, and that was like, and then we went out the next day, and I won every heat and final, and I'll never forget that. That was so cool, and still got the original trophy because they mucked up the trophies. They got third was the biggest trophy, and first was the smallest trophy. So they mucked up all the name plaques, and so I've still got that at home. Still really cool. It was like my first ever race win, and yeah, did it with another mate from Mildura, and my brother I think actually got on the podium too, which was a really cool memory.
So how long did you race karts for?
We started, I think it was 2013. I started, so I was 13, and we raced through what I still think was a bit of a heyday for speedway karting because like it was never a massive thing. It was sort of it was one of those things where it was sort of all around Australia, but there wasn't huge numbers for it. But in this time, it had built pretty big base, especially around Melbourne area. And like, unfortunately, we had to travel, but you just got to do that. And we raced speedway karting until I was, I reckon, I don't know, I reckon I probably would have been like 16, 17, I think. Um, and then we found out about this ADCA in SA, and we're like, oh, give that a crack, and we'll see how we go. And then we did that for a little bit, and I wasn't I wasn't the best at that. I remember vividly because like it's different. Speedway karting is exactly like if I was to go out and race this. It's the same rules apply.
Yeah.
Someone spins you out, you restart. Like cause goes to the back, stuff like that. Anyway, ADCA's like so much more cutthroat. It's like typical circuit racing. Like if you crash, you got a lap to drag your cart off the track. Like
Yeah, right.
you don't get restarted, no second chances, no love lost in that sport. And I remember so vividly where because you'd raced on an oval for years and you get so used to it. And I think it was at like Kadena up in the York Peninsula, and I was starting like next to, I think it was like the first time it started in the field, and I was starting like right next to Ben Brown. Oh no, it was this pretty small heat, and so I was supposed to start the back, but then a few guys in front of me didn't actually, their cast didn't fire, so I went from like eighth, and I'm now up starting fourth in like my first ever heat race, right next to like Ben Brown, who makes BRK
Yeah,
cups, and I was like,
he's okay.
yeah, I was like, oh, we'll see how this goes, and um, I was probably probably over exaggerating my skills in my head, and went in the first corner, and I was pretty locked on going left, and we went left fortunately, but I was still locked left to go up the restart chute, because just I wasn't expecting to turn right so quickly, and I just remember I got the jump on Ben Brown, and I went in the first corner, and then when I realized we had to turn right, he just like come from nowhere and like just clean went around the outside, and I like just absolutely freaked out and just turned hard right and ended up in the windrow, and I was just DNF'd. I was like, oh, well, this is going to be an interesting sort of sport to play.
So obviously, like you've picked up skills from the cars, like undoubtedly. Yeah. Like
Yeah.
obviously something natural as well
Uh,
though.
yeah, I don't know. It's just I don't I don't know. It's kind of hard to say because like I definitely wouldn't call myself skilled. Like everyone makes mistakes and stuff like that, but we just did a lot of karting and just I was very fortunate that it was just like dad, my brother, and I, and so like all we did was race like on weekends and stuff, and like really didn't do too much else during that period. And so like traveled and just tried to race as many people as possible. And like my old man's a firm believer in race the hardest and you'll learn something. So we ended up, yeah, I think majority of it's from that, but unfortunately I'm a bit of a racing tragic, and so I like just always watching racing, like whether it be YouTube, just on the TV, on Facebook, highlight reels, everything. Like I'll watch anything and everything, and probably overanalyze things. I try and get into what people would be thinking during a race and stuff like that, and yeah. But essentially, everything's just been from go karting and then go karting to this. It's sort of this feels like a sort of just a big go kart, really.
Do you watch a lot of your own races back?
Uh yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean,
It's become a big thing, hasn't it?
I'd be lying if I said no.
Yeah.
It's yeah, I don't know. I get so hypercritical of what I do. And like the biggest thing I believe in is like no one's perfect. Um, anyone who says they're perfect or says they're really good at it, they just lie on themselves. So, um, I watch myself all the time, like just go through play per view. Like if I'm bored one night, I'll just watch races, like even races I don't win, and just try and like watch GoPro footage and watch what I'm doing and try and listen to the throttle of what I'm doing, and just like, silly kid shouldn't have
Yeah.
done that. And
There's a lot of guys that do it, and there's a lot of guys that say they don't do it, and then yeah, obviously there's a few guys that are pretty open with it, but
Oh,
yeah, it definitely the guys that I know that do it, it obviously it plays a role in
oh,
what they're doing.
I think it's a massive thing personally. Um,
I mean, you look at like sporting teams that do it, like NFL's huge on it, like what they call tape. Like they have,
oh, it's exactly right, and it's really no different. And like, to be quite honest, it's the same stuff. Whether I'm not watching me, I'm watching everyone else.
yeah,
Like
yep,
leading up to like even recently, leading up to Archerfield for the Australian national English title, like my partner can vouch for it 'cause she was sick of it. But I was like watching every race I could of like the East Coast, like the Sydney dudes and the Queensland dudes, because I haven't raced them much, and I want to know what they're like. I want to know who's the quick ones, like because there's different, like, and it's a big thing I look at is there's people that quick on nights, and there's people who fly under the radar that are quick all the time, but you don't know because they don't win. Like they're
yeah,
just second and third, but they're second and third all the time. And so like I was watching leading up to Archerfield, I think I watched every possible race I could find of Archerfield all the way back to like 2016. And then I was watching like Lismore, Toowoomba, Sydney, Old Parramatta to see if there's any guys that have been nominated to see how they raced at Parramatta. Um, like even a few guys from Victoria, but I don't like because you race them and you know them a bit more. But um, yeah, I'm massive because exactly like what you mean with the NFL stuff, like learning what other people do and trying to. It's not predicting because everything happens so fast that you can never predict anything. Um, but it's more just learning people's driving styles for
yeah,
not only a lot of, I guess sometimes it's for your benefit, but it's also for your safety too. Like you can work out who's a bit erratic and stuff like that. And you're able to then, if you come up to a car and you watch tapes and they're a bit all over the shop, you know, just take a bit more precaution or pass them quickly or things like that. And like I'm erratic at times. Everyone's erratic at times. Like I've been in desperate scenarios and quite open to admit that.
yeah,
Um, like it's just one of those things. If you really want it bad enough, you do some pretty wild things to make sure you don't lose it. Um, but yeah, it's just eventually just looking at what everyone does and all different types. Like I scroll hours through YouTube to try and find different races, different people, different perspectives. Like you get some pretty average handycam footage in YouTube sometimes.
yeah.
But most of the time, like especially all the streaming services these days make it easy to watch.
Yeah. And then like how many drivers strap a GoPro to their own car and stuff too, so you can easily watch their videos from their point of view
Yeah,
as well.
that
Like it's like they're
exactly.
kind of giving a lot away as well, but it's like
Yeah,
yeah, they we all sort of need to do it for sponsors and get the name out there and all that sort of stuff too. But
and
yeah,
that is the biggest thing. Like I was trying to start doing the YouTube thing myself. I've only got like a couple of videos, but I got to do more of it. I got more to post, but I just haven't got around to it. But I think at times I'm a firm believer in if you can get the people around you to go faster, it's going to make you go faster. So like everyone does different things. It's the same in go-karting. Like we used to tell people gearing in go-karting, but there's so many other factors that make up a race car. Like, especially in these things, like there's so many little 1% items. And, um, like, I think watching people's YouTube videos and stuff like that, I personally don't think you give too much away. Like you give your driving style away, but hell, anyone can go and watch you do that.
yeah,
Um, and I just think, like you touched on, like it's a massive thing for sponsors. Um, just trying to get their name out there more and just add perspective. Um, like I'm just as much of a race fan as the next bloke, and I'll sit there and watch David Gravel's YouTube videos and everyone just listen to the onboard. Realistically, when you sit there and watch it, half the time I get a bit bored watching it, but it's just like awesome to hear the noise of it and like it's just GoPro footage and it's just another angle that people don't get to see. And
yeah. Some of them are like so good at it too. Like the probably probably the best is probably the Swindells.
yeah,
They smash it. They're so good
so
at it.
good at it.
Like yeah, like I'm pretty sure they've got that guy full time. Like, it does
It would
content for him. Like,
it wouldn't surprise me.
yeah.
Like,
I mean, like a day later, that guy's got the videos up, or there's like at least clips of it and stuff. Like,
oh,
he's must be he'd surely be working through the night
oh,
to get it up and stuff. And then obviously you got like, it's funny that you've got like that style of it, and then you've got sort of like not the polar opposite, but in a very different ways, like someone like T-Mez, who's like, it's like selfie stick kind of stuff, GoPro in the car. It's not sort of as much sort of behind the scenes as like the way the Swindells do it. The
yeah,
Swindells is almost like sort of documentary.
yeah, like
Type stuff.
cinematography type stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like so. Yeah, and there's like plenty of the guys that are killing it doing it.
I think I think it's a great thing, and like Speedway, I think needs it, because it's extremely hard, and we're considered, I don't know, in probably a broad crew term, rednecks.
Yeah, sure. Yeah,
And
definitely.
I don't think it's like that at all.
Nah,
Like
nah.
the amount of time and effort people put in to make sure their team's like top tier, make sure like cars cars schemes lately have just like up another notch.
Yeah,
And the professionalism, and we're all going in the right direction, I think, but it's just a matter of getting the rest of the people to notice. Um, and I think it's crucial to have both styles of video because like sort of like what Swindell is doing, kind of like the new Dirt documentary and stuff like that. And it's good to see that side of it, but it's also like everyone, if they say they don't, they do. In my opinion, anyway. But everyone wants to know what people think. Everyone wants to know people's raw emotions,
yeah,
and like I watch Teamers for that. Like he'll tell you exactly how it is.
yeah.
And
See, and then the other things too. I love the stuff of like David Garrell in the car, like just filming himself like driving down the road, going to the track, or he's
damn, his chalky milk reviews.
yeah, like or anything like that. Like I love all that sort of stuff too. So, and then I love the stuff of like when you're hearing Kevin Swindell talking setup with his driver and stuff too.
Yeah.
It's like you're getting both ends of the.
It's so hard, and that's what I mean. Like I'd love to get more of that too, because like especially like you see a lot of YouTube videos and they can like there's sort of the cameras in the background, but you can hear what they're saying and stuff like that and all that technical talk, and like I dig that, but it's so hard to capture like when you don't have like a lot bigger team like all us. Like Todd Obson does a great job of trying to capture it all. And like what he's doing and stuff like that, but it's sort of hard because I sort of go into a different sort of attitude at racing and sort of more about I'm there to race. And so it's hard if you don't have someone doing that for you.
Just tow the missus along with the GoPro, man.
Yeah.
Just
Oh,
record everything.
No, yeah. And that's what I mean. And I should do more of it, but like Paul Louise is like too busy when we get in from a heat race, like cleaning the car and doing all that
Yeah.
stuff. And I'm like talking like Louise and Naomi cleaning the car and getting stuff ready and making sure my gear's good. And I'm talking set up with Normie and stuff. And so
Yeah.
it's
The other thing that I haven't seen anyone do too, like you can simply just record all your footage, and they're like, I can't remember the name of the page, but there's a web page where there's like hundreds, probably thousands of producers online, and you just like they all edit and produce in different fashion.
yeah.
So you just pick one of them out and just send all your stuff to them, and they'll send you the video back.
Yeah. So
It costs
that's the go.
like some of them cost like big bucks, but it depends on what you're doing. You can pick some of them up for like $40,
Yeah.
which I know is spending $40 per video, can get pretty hectic. But if some of these guys, like there's heaps of guys out there that would have the content but don't have the knowledge to put it together. So for them to spend the $40 is worth every dollar
Yeah.
to get a video out there.
Oh, and I completely agree. And like I'm extremely fortunate that I went to uni and I sort of the way I do all my Photoshop and stuff, I got a pretty sketchy, it's non-legit version of Photoshop and stuff like that and Adobe. And so like I was fortunate I don't got to pay for it, but it is hard. It's like I've spent numerous hours, like even I've got to a pretty good point with my social media. I've sort of got like a rough template that I can do and it speeds the process up, but it still takes like hours and like editing and like credit to those who do it so quickly because I'm particular, and so like you cut and change and it could take like 6 to 8 hours to like if you want to do a good YouTube video that went for like 20, 30 minutes where everything's overlaid and stuff like that. And,
Yeah.
like in excess of really.
Yeah. And it's kind of a weird thing too, because like like Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, all of that stuff, they're all free platforms.
Yeah,
Like, okay, besides buying the gear and your time, like you're putting stuff out there for free.
yeah.
Like it's not costing you money per
Oh,
se.
it's
Like,
money. It's money for Jan, really,
yeah,
because like gone are the days of where Gary down the road says, "Oh, like I own a Retrovision. Can you paint my logo on the side of the car?" And
yeah,
that gives me advertisement. And you go to a place where there's no stream, there's no anything,
yeah,
and they go, "Oh, shoot, look at Gary's Retrovision. Like
yeah.
he supports car. I'll go. He's joining on Monday." Um, what like sponsors nowadays I find is they're not in it for the advertising. They're in it for
They just want your metadata. They all ask for metadata.
oh yeah,
Like,
and like just they want to follow your journey. Like a lot of the people in my car are just people that I've been really fortunate to hop on and they just help out each year, just trying to help me chase a dream. And so it's hard. Like it's hard to compete with like it's hard to compete with you go to a business with a proposal and like you dress up real nice, you do all the right things, like put on your biggest smile, brush teeth, and they go in there and they laugh at you, and it's like, well, why do you $500 for you race in front of a few thousand people? You get like a few thousand people on social media, or I could pay 99 cents. It does an ad that reaches 1,600 people, or like 16,000 people on Facebook. And it's
yeah,
like, how are you ever going to compete with that? Like,
yeah.
it's a different approach to sponsors nowadays.
The thing that I can't understand, and I know firsthand, and I don't want to say like who, what, and where, but a business that I know sponsored a V8 supercar, and like you wouldn't comprehend the money.
Oh,
Like, and I'm talking the sponsorship was on the underside of the wing,
yeah,
and when he told me the figure for what it cost for the year, I was like, dude, you could sponsor like five sideboards of a sprint car for that
yeah.
for a
That's
season. And they're like, what? What do you mean? I was like, yeah, like for sure. And they couldn't comprehend that like that's what their brand could do, like times five as well.
yeah.
But it's like, why are you
Oh,
spending that much money on a supercar? Like,
but imagine if you had a national company and then instead of doing V8 supercars, yes, it's a big thing, don't get me wrong. But like,
not on the side of a wing, it's not.
no, not on the underside of wing. And if you bought a signboard in every state for a sprint car, just,
Yeah.
yeah,
For
like
like,
you're gonna get something out of it. Like I remember quite vividly, um, like Cam Waters being from Mildura, like my old man knew him and like he worked at a place where they had close relations with Cam and what like NZ his business was putting in and um yeah, and then Cam made it, and obviously the business was like, oh, well, like, can we still have the side of his car? Because I'm pretty sure they're on the side of his Super 2 car.
yeah.
And they're like, oh, not for that money. Like,
Yeah.
you go over in that corner, like down there for that kind of money.
Yeah. So I know the kind of money that was put in for the underside of the wing,
Yeah.
they couldn't have it the next season for the same money, which I was like, you kidding?
Yeah.
Like, yeah. The same money then transferred to like one of the little stickers on the front bumper for
Yeah.
like
And it's sad because
mega money, which is like, yeah, blows my mind, eh?
it's,
Which for me as a business, which I absolutely love Speedway, so I'm like stupid in that fact of it. But if I had a business of like that caliber, I know that I'd rather be on 5 cars in Speedway than one V8 supercar like that big on a bumper.
yeah, because like at the end of the day, I'm pretty sure some sprint car teams race more than Viet supercar teams.
Oh, for sure,
And
easy.
at like,
Especially some of the big guys, they're doing like 40 plus shows a year in Australia and like Australia wide. I
yeah.
mean, V8 supercars is Australia wide, but yeah, it's
And like you get little stickers on Viet supercars, and half the time you got to pause the TV, then try and clear up the screen good enough to even see your logo on the front splitter. And it's
yeah,
like, what do you
yeah.
like? Unless stationary videos, and like so many people have stepped up their social media in Speedway and what they're doing, and so
Yeah,
you essentially get the same
it's
out of
pretty
it.
funny, like how some of the vet supercar guys lack social media. You're like, I
Yeah,
don't understand
it's
it.
supposed to be the pinnacle.
Yeah, and then you get guys like yourself who are just like killing the social media stuff, and it's like, I don't know, it just
Means nothing.
doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah,
Like it's so weird, but
yeah,
I don't know. It's the mentality to speedway though.
yeah, and it is, and it's unfortunately, it's just it's tarnished, and I think it's sad that Australia doesn't realize it. Like, obviously in America they do, because like the biggest thing the most obvious thing is Larson. Like he has raised the dirt scene over there, and now they are considered
Yeah,
top tier athletes.
yeah.
And like all those guys, and people are like, oh my god, look how good these guys are.
And it's funny, like, because people like us who've been into dirt for so long, we're like, no, but that's where dirt's always been at.
Yeah,
Like he hasn't changed speedway in any fashion that the racing's become more exciting or anything like that has
yeah,
changed. It's just the fact of like he went from dirt to like NASCAR. It's not. Yeah,
exactly.
it's not like some NASCAR guy has changed the speedway or
No,
the other
it's
way around. It's
got
like
in there.
he's still the guy that like we know from like 10 years ago, kind of thing. Like
It's
it's not any different.
and it's the same when you look back. Like it's happened years and years.
Yeah,
Jeff Gordon started
yeah,
in like speed, like midgets and stuff like that. And,
yeah,
like Mario Andretti,
yeah,
all these people you look back on, it's all got dirt
yeah,
history, but people can't see that, and it's
yeah.
bad because
That's why I think we're so lucky to have people like Tony Stewart.
oh,
Who's just
massive,
like,
yeah,
yeah, he was actually racing the GP midget last weekend,
yeah,
which to
and
me like just blows my mind that like he still goes back and races like
it's the
like
same.
like a GP midget. Oh, a GP, yeah, no, a quarter, 3/4 midget, yeah.
It's the same when you look
And it's still got
like
like his small, like his first Dairy Queen sponsor on the side of it and all
yeah,
that sort of stuff. Like he's still like full, like man, he was still like I'd hate to know the money that he's worth, and he still rocks up to the dirt track. It's like man, that to me that's like golden. Like you
I
can't,
think it's perfect for what it should reflect. Like give back to what gave you the shot. Like
yeah,
and like you look at Millbridge when all the big sprint car guys go to Millbridge and race all those little cars. And
yeah,
it's like fair enough, righto. Like it's awesome. It's a good way to help raise the profile of smaller divisions.
yeah,
Um, yeah, I think it's awesome. I think Australia needs more of it. Like it'd be so cool to have like a little race in a lower tier category that like all top tier athletes in Australia race and like sort of like TCR almost where you get a lot of supercar or ex supercar drivers come down and race all these little hatchbacks around a circuit track and it's like it's just cool because it's like it's trying to help grassroots raise them up at the same time.
yeah. And that's the weird thing for me. Like I don't see. Not that every single like sprint car out there comes from like a workshop that's like, like a Casey Kane caliber type
Yeah,
sort of setup, but like they're all like as professional kind of thing in
big
that
time,
that sense. Like,
big time. Like you go to any race car shop and the amount of stuff they carry, and it's all top tier. Like
yeah,
it's all good looking stuff. I'm a firm believer in it doesn't really matter where your car comes from as long as it rolls out looking schmick. And like it's the same with every sprint car team. Like it doesn't matter your shop, like they're running top tier stuff, like great looking stuff. The amount of stuff they carry, like
yeah.
wheels, tires, engines,
And like even some of the cars that don't look as sort of specky in terms of like the wrap that they've got on them,
yeah,
I guarantee they're still full of all the good gear that have come from like a single car garage or something like
yeah,
that. Like it's not like, just because it doesn't look the greatest doesn't mean it's not
exactly.
like there.
That's like I don't know. I'm a sucker for like pretty like basic schemes and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
that's what I froth on Blackbeard, eh?
Yeah,
Like anything that he does is like,
yeah, it's
froth on.
awesome, and I really love it, and probably one of the coolest sprint cars. And this is gonna sound weird, but I thought it looked awesome. Was when Marcus Dumsney went to America with the A1
Oh yeah,
and just the black car and
yeah,
that silver wing.
yeah,
I was like, that's a front running car and can be a front running car. And I was like, you don't need all this fancy looking stuff. I was like, and it's funny because they say, oh, looks don't win races, but they help sponsors.
yeah. That you sort of do when you're getting towards like the corporate end of like
Yeah,
sponsors and stuff like that. Like,
and you got to have it.
yeah,
Like, it's just one of those things. Just like an engine, you need good graphics to make your car stand out so the sponsors go, oh, wow, that looks nice and stuff like that. And having all your stuff look clean and tidy. But yeah, like compared to a supercar team or a NASCAR team, like some of these sprint car teams, like you look at Oz and Child's trailer, Maceto's trailer, like Gravel's trailer when they do all the YouTube things, like those things are no different to what they pull up with a NASCAR hauler.
yeah,
Like Cannon McIntosh's trailer for like those two little midgets, and they got like drop deck tails and
yeah.
stuff.
Well,
Like
I know the one that Timez works out of with RMS is actually a ex NASCAR Truck Series truck. It's still
Exactly.
got the Toyota all over the side of it. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's like that's the caliber that they are.
Like, and to
Yeah,
sit there and say that it's not as professional as supercars, I think it's a flat lie.
yeah. That's me and Jack were talking about that. That like definitely the guys who do the full Woo tour would be on par with like their supercars here. Like in terms of like the team, the organization, the logistics, everything. Like I actually think it would be more hectic than Vet supercars because what does Vet supercars do?
I think I think
What do
it's
they do?
better than like I know it's pretty like standard that I would sit here and say that it's better than
Yeah, that's good.
supercars because I obviously love dirt. But when you look at what the World of Outlaws show and how they run a show, and it is what supercars are trying to achieve at the moment. Because like they run time trials, a heat dash, final, get out of there, and they race 100 plus nights a year.
Yeah,
And like that whole, it's not like you've got 16 commentators that you're trying to get to and from an event, and like you could rock up. There'd be a standard World of Outlaws, or there'd be a ridiculous amount of cars.
well, World of Outlaws has actually started putting up on their like socials the like not I wouldn't say the run sheet. It's probably not the right word, but the full race information is
Yeah,
up like a couple of days before the event, and it's got like everything on it.
yeah,
Like
yeah, and like
tells you who the like it breaks everything down in terms of who's the commentator plus like the local commentator,
yeah,
what race receiver channel. Like it's everything. They just put it up on their Facebook. It's like how good. Like
and it's awesome, and it's a credit to the guys that run it. Like even like all those series over there. Like I think,
even like USAC. Look at like USAC's running
oh,
a
you,
full tour of midgets and non-wing sprint cars,
yeah,
plus the Silver Crown stuff. Then they've got like the pavement stuff, and then they've even got like all the other stuff that you probably don't sort of see. They've got like the open wheel Mazda class stuff as well.
yeah,
Like there's so much stuff. Like it's just
and there's so much that goes on. And Ben, like, I don't want to be critical of supercars because like
I do.
supercar,
I don't
yeah,
care.
but yeah, I don't like. At the end of the day, it's just a general opinion. But like they, like even the rumors that have come out where they want to limit the grid because it costs too much to transport the cars. Like it's better to have 24 cars than too many, and like cut it back. Like supercar, no one cares if supercars raced in America, raced in Shanghai. Like
Yeah.
race the only two places that they need to race are Australia and New Zealand. Nobody, like, without being rude, nobody cares about it
No, we're
anywhere else.
nothing on the
Like
world
it's the
scale.
same
Yeah.
when AFL tried to go over and play footy in Shanghai. Like makes no sense. Why would
Yeah.
you? Like you don't see us playing NFL. Like
Yeah. It's a weird thing. Have you ever seen stock cars from Brazil?
no, I
It
didn't even know Africa had racing until I was living with Ryan Alexander and Michael Miller, and Ryan.
there's sprint cars in South Africa.
Yeah, they were talking about
Yeah.
late models over there, and
Yeah.
I was like,
Yeah.
over there.
Yeah, there's it's not like it's obviously not huge, but yeah, there's they do some pavement sprint car stuff and dirt sprint car stuff there too. Yeah.
It's crazy to think.
Yeah, it's pretty wild that's yeah. I'd love to see a South African come out and race or something or make it to America.
It would be
Yeah.
such a like a novelty.
Yeah. Do you
Like,
follow Tom Harris?
yeah,
Yeah, I don't
dude,
know
has
why.
he had a stressful campaign
I
so
just
far?
froth on that dude because it's like he's coming from England and they race those other like funny looking things
Yeah,
and he's trying
they're
to
weird. I can't work them out. I watch them a lot, like a few times, and
yeah,
I,
it's like the stuff in New Zealand, eh?
yeah, I don't get it. I
Yeah.
don't like.
Even the Kiwis tell me like, yeah, don't worry about them. Like,
Yeah, it's
not to take anything away from them.
oh good, no, it's their type of racing. But I was like, you try and put two and two together, and you try and work out what their strategies are, and then they just run each other in the fence, and it's like, oh, I guess that works.
Yeah. Yeah, teams racing or whatever it is. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's kind of weird. But like stock car racing in Brazil is huge, like way bigger than vet supercars.
yeah.
And it's like
You don't see them coming out to Australia.
no, they're
Australia.
not fussed about coming out here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it's sad because like make what's good in your country good. Doesn't matter about what they're doing. Like you're not gonna get a sponsor from America. You're not gonna just try and worry about yourself and try and get bigger car counts, more people, make it more interesting. Like take it for like it's only mine. I look at like the Adelaide 500 and without being rude, there's a lot of like motorsport people, there's a lot of car people, but at the same time, people are only there for the rock concert.
Yeah, they're there for
Like,
the event,
like
which
I could
yeah.
get, I you could go and say the classic, for example, that gets packed out just for racing.
Yeah.
Imagine if you put a concert on for that too, and like at the end, and then you
But
have
we
people.
probably wouldn't give a shit about it as speedway people though. That's
Oh,
like
you would.
we're there for the racing. Like
And
yeah,
there's so many people, but imagine how many more people you would attract
yeah,
to that venue if you had a music concert, like, because like that car park, if you had it down the far end of that Warrnambool side car park and had that all sectioned off, and imagine the amount of people you could get there. Like
yeah,
it's incredible, and there's so many opportunities, but it's how desperate are you to get people looking. Like it's the same with supercars. Supercars going through heaps of rebranding, and that you look at any event now, and it's more about off track than it is on track. Like
yeah,
because the most frustrating thing is like trying to watch a support category at a V8 supercar race because unless I think in my 23 years of being alive, I've probably watched like five support category races that are raced from green to checker and not safety car, finish under safety car, or
yeah.
like,
I, to me, it seems like such a weird way to go racing. Like I know that those support categories get their big day at certain tracks and stuff, but
yeah,
they're not. They're like they're out in the grass paddock,
it's a lot
like
of expenditure to go out there.
a ridiculous amount of money to go. It's like stupid money to go racing, no matter what you're racing, really. But
Yeah,
it's like even some of those like Super Two stuff to go out in the back of the boondocks or
yeah.
something like that is like
And you get 23 minutes on track. You don't
yeah,
get, it's not racing that. It's, you're out there for
yeah.
23 minutes.
Couldn't do it. I'd rather go like street stock racing or
Oh,
something.
it'd drive me nuts. Like
Yeah,
knowing that, hell, if you qualify bad and you're like, I got to get this race to move up the front, and it's like safety car, and it's like, oh, well, we're just going to kill 3 laps here, roll around up behind the safety car. And
yeah,
it's just so, like, when you start getting into those circuit racing categories, people go nuts with money. And that's where, like, I think we're very fortunate in Speedway where until you get to like the top tier stuff where you're talking sprint cars and stuff, some of the lower categories you can get away with not spending. Like this is a budget class. Like we don't spend ridiculous amounts of money on this. Like
yeah.
it's just poor,
When
poor
if like you were
car
trying to,
cookie.
from what I know, and it could be off the mark, but like if you were trying to get a drive in a Super Two car, you'd need $1 million behind you to give to that team to race Super Two.
Yeah, it's like
Like which is just
yeah.
crazy.
Well, like what people are paying are like cousin races TA2 cars, and I'd hate to know what he's spending. And um, yeah, yeah, it's just one of those things. And at the end of the day, it comes down to some people have enough money that there isn't risk in it, but some people who want to make it and don't have the funding to do it, it's do or die. Like
Yeah,
you put your name and the money you can raise on the line, and if you crash, you're done. You nothing. You've
yeah,
achieved nothing. You've put enough money that could buy 20 houses for poor families. Like the cost of living now, like $1 million. If you had 50 grand's worth of down payments or 80 grand's worth of down payments for a house, imagine how many houses you could buy. You'd
Mm.
be on an entrepreneur just on like racing's not a financial investment.
No, not at all.
Like anyone who says I'm
That's
going to
crazy.
race for money, unless you're in the States,
Yeah,
like doesn't happen. Like any good businessman wouldn't race cars. They race it because they love it, not
yeah,
because they do it.
yeah. They all it's all like a hobby, like fun
Yeah,
kind of thing for them. Yeah.
yeah.
So how long ago did you jump into the wingless?
Uh, shoot, I'm not really good. I'm thinking I'm going into just finished my third season. So, it's a bit random how I got the ride. It's probably not a standard story or a standard storyline that you get with a lot of people. Um, I was just a kid in uni. We had enough to race karts and stuff like that, and it's just always the next step is like you need a lot more money. I say that, but it's you need to have the financial backing to do the outlay. Then once you're in,
Yeah,
it's unless you junk it week in week out, it's not horrendous. And I remember vividly I was at uni doing some stupid math thing for uni. And pretty sure it came up on like a buy spot sell page, and it was a video of Normie driving the white the white car at the time, and like the post read, oh, looking like expression of interest. They're looking for like a second driver, like preferably someone young or someone new who wouldn't normally have the opportunity to step up in categories and go to the next stage of their career. And I was like, sometimes you look at that stuff, you're like, is that really real? Like, what's the catch?
Yeah.
Um, and I was, but I was like, hey, you got to give it a go because you never know what could come of it. And I was like writing up some stuff, and my old man rings me and he's like, "Oh my God, have you seen this? Like, look at this." He's like, "Get onto him." And I was like, "Already there. It's all right." Anyway, sounds a bit corny, but I ended up writing a full racing resume sort of thing, like who I was, what I did, like outside of racing, and what kind of person I was, and then all my accolades so far. Like, because I was very fortunate. We did really well in karting too, and like what I'd won and how I'd race for other people in karts and stuff like that. And I'll treat all your stuff like my own, and I'd love the opportunity, rah rah. And I sent it off to him, and it was like most nerve wracking night sleep I think I've ever had. I was like, shoot, like they still hadn't read it yet. I was like, oh, I bet you there's like thousands of people that got in before me. Um, and the next, I think it was like the next mid morning or something, Naomi replied, and she's like, oh, like thanks for responding. Just the typical thing, like thanks for responding. You did a really good job. Like, oh, I'll pass it on to Normie and he'll let you know. Um, and then it was out of myself and another kid. Um, but that kid was from the Riverland, and I was only in Parafield Gardens, so I was able to come out here and regularly work on the car and stuff. And so then I ended up ringing up Normie, and like at this time, I was like full fretting because like I don't have the financial backing to like do this. And I was like getting help from like Michael Miller. I was like, what are the questions I asked? Like, you're you're experienced. I was like, what do I do? Um, and he gave me a list of questions to ask, and I rang Normie, and that was like seriously nerve wracking conversation. And then he's like, "Oh, come out. It's just gonna be easy if you just come out and meet me and stuff like that." And I was like, "Righto." Um, I rolled out here, and he had two cars sitting here, and for like someone who in speedway karting, it's segregated. Speedway karting is only done with speedway karting at a meeting. Like where if you ask junior seniors, you like race with other categories and you see this stuff in person. Anyway, I'd like come out here and I like walked in and there was like two race ready wingless sitting there and I'm like drooling. I was like, gotta get this. And yeah, I sort of talked it out with Normie and what he wanted from me. And like what he expected of me and stuff like that. And yeah, he ended up giving me a shot. And I was originally meant to race the second car, but on the first practice day I was supposed to go to, couldn't get the second car fired, and I was like, here we go. I was like, this is a sign. Like I shouldn't be here. Like I'm in too deep. And fortunately, Normie, just his relaxed nature, he's like, oh, it's all right. You just go in my car, and he had the better engine and all the better running gear, and it was like I guess if you were to name cars one and two, his was the number one car of the shop, and mine was going to be the number two. And I went out and I did all right, I think. He was happy, and he's like, "Oh well, you may as well just race my car, and I'll just crew with you until you get up to speed and stuff like that." And yeah, we went out, and um, he was, oh, he's just great to work with. He's probably the polar opposite to me, which is really good for me. I'm really particular, and I get really stressed at the racetrack, and because I like probably want it too bad. And he's like so mellow. He's just like go with the flow. He's like, it's all right, dude. He's like, you work it out, or he's like, we'll get it on the next one, or he's like, you just got to stop stressing. And so, um, yeah, we were slowly but surely getting better, and I was getting better. I was getting more comfortable in the car. I was like, it was a bit of a reality check actually, because we were doing really well in speedway karting, and we'd done well. We'd been doing well for quite a few years, and I thought I wasn't going to be that bad at this. And the first race meeting, I did all right. Like starting off the back, moved up a couple positions in my heat race. Anyway, I started off like towards the back in the feature, and like halfway through the feature, Jack McCarthy just flew by me and like put me a lap down, and I was like, "Holy smokes!" I was like, "I'm gonna need to up my game if," and like he just tore off into the distance, and I come in, I was like a little bit deflated because like got lapped by like first and second, and I was like, "Damn, am I really good at this?" And um, yeah, and surely enough, just more racing, getting more comfortable with it all, and just trusting the car a little bit more, and um, yeah, we ended up getting on the podium in Wala after a few meetings, which was really cool. We got second to Jack. Um, yeah, and it's just built from then on, and probably the defining bit to see how the relationship was going to work is um, I was sort of getting more and more confidence in the car. We went to our first ever SummerSlam, which is the 3 nights in
Yep.
January. Anyway, I done really well in the first heat of Borderline, and I was like, we're on. I went from like deep in the heat to like, I think I won it. I was got second or something, and I was like, oh, we're on. Anyway, in the second heat race, I was just trying way too hard, and um, I ended up going too high, and I like smacked the wall, and like bent the Jacobs ladder, and so the car was like super tight, and I was like, you're right, just keep sending it, it'll turn, and then another guy slid me, and I was like, oh, I'll get him back, and I went to slide in the corner. I was so worried about where he was, and at that time, like throwing sliders was pretty, and he was a fast guy. Um, I was like pretty nerve wracking throwing sliders, and I completely missed the tractor tie. It's like approaching this large tractor tie on the infield of Borderline. Anyway, I hit that, and I'm pretty sure my heart left my chest, and I did 360s. I don't think I've ever felt that many G's in my life. Just like stop immediately, and then like rotated and wrote the whole chassis off, just hitting that tire. And fortunately enough, didn't bend any running gear. The only thing that we couldn't retrieve was the torsion bar that was stuck because the torsion bars got bent in the front of the chassis. But like we still used that beam for like the rest of the season, all the front end and everything. There's only out of that the chassis was wrecked and the torsion bar and a left rear rim, but other than that, everything else was right. And I was like super deflated. I was like, that's the end of that. I was like throwing away all my chances, and I was like, it was sort of a pivotal moment where I was going to see like whether Normie was like, oh, well, you owe me all that money for wrecking that. And um, to his credit, like such genuine people, and they're like, no, he's like, it's all right, mate. We'll build up the second car and we'll go again. He's like, you got to build it though, and I was like, dude, I'll do that. Yeah, I was like, and so like, and it's just like credit to his nature, and he's like, because like I was ready to just pack up and go home. I was like, I'm done. I've embarrassed myself. I've looked
Think
like
your gear bag's just gonna be sitting outside the trailer when you
yeah,
get
I've looked like a
there.
peanut. I've come in, I've overcooked this, but Normie and Naomi, they're like, oh, well, we'll go to the next few rounds and we'll just watch it. And I was like, what do you mean? Like, we're done. I was like, no point watching it. We're done. And Normie's like, I didn't come all this way to not watch it. And so we went to Simpson with him, and then um, I ended up driving home on the Sunday, but they stayed at Warrnambool, and they just love it. They're just diehard race fans. And like, that was probably a defining factor in the relationship. I was like, wow, these people are like literally amazing for just giving a kid who they had no idea about a shot, and then just wrecked a whole chassis on them. And they're like, they're okay about it. Like Normie's like, like I said, like Normie's like, I don't want you to go wrecking things all the time, but he's like, I don't want you in the car if you're not gonna have a crack.
Yeah,
Like,
there's a very fine line, isn't there?
yeah.
Yeah, it's like,
Um,
yeah,
he's like, I know you're gonna respect my gear, and he's like, you're not gonna act like a twat. But he's like, I also don't want to spend all the money with you in the car and you not actually have a crack and see if you
yeah.
can win the thing. And so yeah, and ever since we've just been doing this gig ever since, really.
Because you wouldn't really junk too many chassis in wingless in Australia, like compared to sprint cars or
No,
anything like that. It's
not
probably
really.
yeah,
Like and further, like you can repair them and stuff like that. Like, pretty sure this is 2006 Eagle chassis. I was like, it's been cut and re-welded, and um, poor thing's had a pretty hard life, but like. had torsion bar tubes replaced on it. Oh, well, like re-welded on it because um it like bent in, and so then we had to try and push it back out and split the tubing, and so. But other than that, unless you like hit the infield tires of Mount Gambier, or like have a pretty big dump, it's yeah. I don't think you'd go through too many chassis personally. Like touch wood, I don't want to ever go through one again.
Yeah,
Like
they sort of crash a little bit different to a sprint car or something, don't they? Because
yeah,
they're not obviously going as fast. And
yeah. I think that's probably the biggest thing is the fast. Like obviously when you roll, because there's nothing to cushion. When you come down like on your roof, I think that's probably one of the only cons of crashing a wingless compared to a sprint car. Um, and yeah, like you sort of feel never like watching anyone roll over just because like you know how it can end, especially with like winglesses with no compression or anything.
yeah,
Like it's just a terrible feeling for me watching anyone roll over or crash in a big way because you just hope they're all right. But yeah, I don't think there's not really too much damage you can really do to them.
yeah. Like you see some like not mediocre crashes, but some crashes that like you see like big ones, and then you see some like not so big ones, and then you later find out that they junked the chassis in like that little crash in a sprint car. It's
Yeah,
like it's because it's probably going a hell of a lot faster than you sort of think as
yeah,
well. Like,
that's right. And like, yeah, I don't know. It's just all there's so many different factors like between like world quality steel, different chassis where they crumple and
yeah,
stuff like
or
that.
where they've landed and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
that's right. And how they've impacted and stuff like that. And so you could definitely bend a chassis if you really trying, but
Yeah,
I think you're spot on just with the amount of more speed that sprint cars are carrying. It's so much easier to junk a chassis, even if it's not as big of a wreck.
yeah. So I printed this off because I wanted to make sure I got it correct.
Yeah,
Obviously, this last season, definitely your best
yeah,
season to date. So 2022-23 South Australian State Champion, 2022-23 overall South Australian State Points Champion, Murray Bridge Track Champion, South Australian Wingless Driver of the Year, 60 lap feature winner.
yeah. It's all right.
It's all right.
Yeah, yeah. I don't like boasting about it. Like um I got little achievements that I like to do. Like this season, big one was just consistency.
Yeah,
Because last season we'd have a win, then I'd finish like 16th, 15th. Then we'd win and I'd finish 12th or like in the B main or something. And so for me this year was all about consistency and just upping my driving ability and just gradually getting the car better step by step. And I'm a firm believer in if you do all those little things, results will come eventually. Um, and yeah, like I stepped up like shock packages. Like I tried to understand my shocks and stuff like that. And I tried to understand like just all these other little attributes of the car because there's so many things that like you got to think about on these. And I think that was a big defining factor of getting a bit quicker. Like before this season, I couldn't scratch myself on Mow Bridge. Like I was just hopeless. And we sucked on a slick track. Then we were all right in a fast and rough track, but like just a fast track we weren't great. Slick track we weren't great. Like I was terrible on a slick track. And then I think there's a lot of accumulative factors and a lot of people in the background who have helped me out and offered advice and stuff like that, and which has sort of allowed me to understand what I got to do on a slick track, especially with car setup. Um, and I think that stepped up our consistency this year, which I'm really thankful for. Like we've had really good runs, and like Normie's biggest thing is just don't overcomplicate it. It's
yeah,
like honestly, when you look at it, it's just a bit of metal that rolls around a track, isn't it? Like, there's so many people that get caught up in theories.
yeah, yeah.
Like,
So it's so big in speedway. Yeah,
oh, and
yeah,
like, I'm not saying I'm a good engineer, I'm a pretty subpar engineer, but when you look at it and look at like the math behind things, and I like to know everyone's theories and then deconstruct them and see whether
yeah,
it sounds legit or not, or whether it's placebo.
yeah.
Um, but like,
You
eh,
could definitely do some placebo changes in the pits.
oh, massive, massive.
Yeah,
Like the um what was it? Oh, we had Horsham. We were at Horsham one time, and like I don't handle when things go wrong very well. That's one thing I do got to work on is like just calm down. It's all right, mate. Um, anyway, we done night one and we won that pre-lib night, and I was like, man, the car feels amazing. Anyway, all we done was watched it and prepped it and put it back together. Car wouldn't start. I was like, kidding me. The car wouldn't do anything, it wouldn't fire over. And then luckily we had another bloke next to us and he was like helping. And sure enough, the ejector had like just shit itself. Anyway, at that time, really didn't know much about the injectors or how they worked. But I was like adamant I was going to fix it. Anyway, I had to go to driver's briefing and um, Normie's like, just leave it with me, dude. Like, I'll get it sorted. It's all right. And uh, he comes back and like, because I like when you put injectors in the car, I like a matching set. I don't like it when they're different.
Yeah.
I think that's just OCD because it all looks nice. It looks pretty. Anyway, Normie had done it, put the bonnet on, and had it running. Because like he knows if it's running, I won't take the bonnet off. Like that's fine. Anyway, um, and everyone knew about it except for me. But he put a different injector in it. It was a wrong injector. It was wrong CCs, everything, and he had to like double up the O rings for it to fit and stuff like that. And it was pretty not wasn't the perfect. Anyway, I went out there and we did really well for the rest of the night. And I pulled it off. I pulled the bonnet off after the night, and I was like, "It's a different injector." And he's like, "Yeah, you didn't know about it. It was fine."
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
and that's the same. Like people get carried away with theories, and I think theories are great, and theories work for everything. And I think if someone does think that something it makes it go better, and they do go better with it, I think that's more of a feeling thing. And so sometimes it's just better to go like that because the driver feels more comfortable like that.
Yeah.
But like, especially with these things, like people get carried away with tire, and I was like, half this car's steel, half this car's got different hex heads and bolts and shit on it, and it's like sometimes frustrating. We're getting better with it. I'm getting more, but like there for a while, you had to like some torsion bar stops are like half inch, some are 9/16 inch spanners, and it's like I haven't really got that much tie in the car, and um, yeah, it's just I think you can go so much further if you want to, but like I don't know, I just look at it. I don't some points it's not really needed just because like when you look at the math of it, won't really make a ridiculous difference.
Yeah. That's like me and my mate were talking about Michael Pickens, who's won over 200 midget features in New Zealand
Yeah,
alone. And we were talking like, there's no way that car went out to like exactly what he wanted perfectly for 200 feature wins.
no,
Like, it's had to have come down at, you know, probably multiple points where he's just had to drive it. And like,
yeah,
and that's what's going to come out
and
of him as a driver sort of thing.
exactly, and like these cars are a great budget car and category. Like the only people I think, unless you wreck stuff, obviously, and like tires can be expensive, but the only people that make it expensive are the people that want to make it expensive. Like you can go buy like full steel bolt kit for these cars for like I don't know, like 250, $300, and then the tire one's like 1,200.
Yeah.
And it's like, mate, I only got a few sponsors and limited budget. I was like, give me the steel ones every day of the week, and like when you look at rotations of inertia and stuff like that, it means nothing. Like I don't know, like yeah, I don't know. For me,
I'm just picturing like heaps of people disagreeing with you on
oh,
that.
and
Everyone loves like the time.
everyone,
Like, everything's about lightweight and everything like
everyone
that.
will, and everyone's got their own opinions, and that's fine. Like people can have their own
Yeah.
opinions, and sometimes, and I admit, having tie in places will help. Like if you want to be right on the ragged edge of the weight rule, by all means, like get all tie stuff. Like there's nothing. I'm not being hypercritical of it and saying it's a bad thing. I'm just saying like in some places it's like that extra bit of money could actually be spent on tires. Like
Yeah.
you look at tire, if you got no tire, that's half your race. Like for instance, like the SA title this year for these, um, the difference that come down to that race was who put on new tire and who didn't.
Yeah.
Like track tore tires like in the first 10 laps, and it solely come down to like my tire probably here somewhere, but it was canvas. Like you could see where they started wrapping. And the way I look at it is if you were to go and buy a harmonic balancer bolt for an engine and you went to go buy a Thai one instead of a steel one, you'd pay probably $100 more just for a Thai harmonic balancer bolt. And when you look at the math, the rotational inertia is so close to the center point that it makes essentially not much difference at all. Like I only look at it from an engineering point of view. And so for me personally, who doesn't have all the money in the world to spend,
Yeah.
I would rather see that money go towards a tire on the race car, and go towards other stuff. Like you could, like hell, you could spend more money on shocks and stuff like that, and instead of worrying about bolts, like if you're going through, I get to a point where someone gets in the window and their car's like really good and they've maximized everything else, and then all your 1%ers come down to all those bolts, and like by all means, I totally agree. Go get them and
Yeah.
make your car that little bit better.
Yeah. It like maybe not so much these, but definitely like top tier sprint car racing that is all playing a part. Like,
Oh, massively.
but yeah, coming back to these, like it's probably not.
And that's what I mean, and that's why like people can disagree with me, but I do agree when it comes to sprint cars and stuff like that. Like unless if you're gonna do it properly, you need to do it like all the other boys are doing.
Yeah.
Like all the other boys and girls are racing with Ty through everything, and yeah, I think when you look at that, that's a fair reason to go Ty everything, um, and spend that money, because if you're gonna race sprint car money, let's face it, you're gonna spend money, you ain't gonna get it back.
Yeah.
So you might as well do it properly.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that's a big thing in that game is like I went out to get new spindles for the front end, and like I just got steel ones, and then I was there at the race shop with like this other sprint car team, and they were like, "Oh, I feel the Thai ones," and I was like, "Holy dooly!" Like, no wonder that makes so much of a difference. Like,
Yeah.
and when you think about that, like lighter spindles on your steering wheel, lighter on your hands, and all that stuff, and it all adds up, and it all adds up in a great way. But it comes down to how committed and how much expenditure you want to outlay for it, in my opinion, anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sure that's. I can just picture it now.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
But
going to be,
it's-
there's going to be so many people
Oh,
who
I'm
disagree.
sure, but yeah, I think you're probably right in like in this in something that's not as fast. Like from what I even know, and I could be wrong. I don't think there's even much tie in non-wings in America.
No, well,
Like I think,
because when you look at it, it's so, the way, this is a very engineering side of it, but like the material properties of Thai like differ from like applications. Like we have a lot of like your shock points, they're all single shear shock points. And so it's sort of, I guess it's how much you want to spend. And like Thai is, I think, fractionally stronger, but it's,
yeah. I think. Do you follow Kyle Cummins?
yeah,
He
yeah,
he had a video interview where he broke down everything. He went wing racing for a while,
yeah,
and then I think he got like I don't know, like maybe 12 or something sort of shows in, and he like packed it up and he went back to non-wing because he was like saying after that 12 shows in a winged car, like just so many things needed replacing, and it's like stuff that he wouldn't even replace in a season in his non-wing car.
yeah.
Like,
And it just comes down to the different applications.
yeah,
More force, more speed, more everything.
yeah,
That's like when like watching all those flow documentaries, and like Shepard's team, like they got laps. They count laps that everything's got.
yeah,
And so like for like bolts in like pickups and arms and stuff like that, and like 300 laps, it's out. It's done.
yeah,
Like whether it's failed or not, like you crack test it, don't matter. It's gone.
yeah. Yeah, I was talking to a mate about that the other day, and it was like I think that comes down to more over there because of how big their tracks are. Like we do
Yeah.
a lot of stuff here by shows,
Mm.
and I think it's like you look at the size of the tracks there, like surely their nights are sort of maybe half more than like what we would do in the same amount of shows,
Yeah.
sort of thing. Like,
Because like you look at it, and they do so many different things. Like they are so much of the components in different applications. Like you go and you'd like race in Eldora or a Knoxville, and then you go to somewhere like Peevely or Silverdola and race on such small, tight, lot of different sort of scenario of car. Like when you're racing Eldora and Knoxville, your car's under constant load,
Yeah,
like lateral load, and like you're trying to keep everything smooth, and then you go to like a smaller track and it's probably like rougher. You're trying to turn, like cars a lot more unsteady and stuff like that.
yeah. Well, I know. I think NASCAR's canned it now because of like the cost of it, but they would have a fully brand new different car for each track. Like the chassis would be
Yeah,
like built differently, the pickup, everything was different about the car for that one track, and it'll be used for that
yeah,
one track. And then it was a whole different car the next week. That's why I used to see those photos of the NASCAR teams had like 24 or 30 cars in the workshop.
yeah.
Each of those cars were for a different track. Like,
Crazy, isn't it? Like
like
to think how much money they would put into it.
oh,
It's the same with like when I look at F1s and like how many helmets they go through. Like it's a helmet. Like they get all these new painted helmets, all new helmets, and like those documentaries where they get
I don't know anything about what you're talking about. So,
oh like F1 drivers like get new suits for like each race round, and they have different suits for they have like a suit per like practice and quality and race suit, like a race suit, and oh, it's just like the money.
yeah,
If you want to spend it, it's there.
I've just lost more respect for it than I did
Yeah,
previously.
it's crazy to think like, and it essentially comes down to all boils down to money. How much financial backing have you got?
Yeah. So where do you want to end up?
Ah,
Like
sprint cars.
definitely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
that's like the end goal. That's like childhood thing. Like, I think at the moment I got a really good thing going here with Normie, and I'm stoked, like so stoked to be here. And I think like as a driver, I've still got heaps more to develop. Like I've still got so much, like just thinking about racing and what I should be doing in races and stuff like that. I got so much to still learn, and like all those opportunities will hopefully or maybe arise later on. Um, though for now, I just sort of keep doing what I'm doing and sort of don't rush anything. It'll all come in time, and I think if you rush it too quickly, then it might not turn out how you sort of want it to turn out, and it'll be disheartening. So at the moment, yeah, like the dream is to race sprint cars or like even non-wings in America. I think would be awesome.
Yeah.
Um,
That's what I was about to ask. You considering anything like going for a stint in like there's just so many more like sort of rental rides over there. You could go over there
yeah,
for you go over there for a month and pick up I don't know what
there's something
like
over
10,
there.
10 races in a month or something like that. Depending
Yeah,
on where you're at and where you're going. And like, you can fly under the radar there quite a lot too. You don't
and
have
that's what I think would be the best bit.
Yeah, I don't think you need to go like necessarily. Not saying that you don't, but and that you're not capable of it. But you wouldn't have to go to like a USAC meeting. You could easily fly under the radar at like a
Oh,
Sunday show at Lincoln or something
exactly.
like that. No one knows, and there's no social media to back up
Yeah,
anything if you want to. Like,
and that's what like I'd love to get over there. But it's one of those things. Like, oh, if I was to go over there, I want to do it properly
yeah,
and find someone and have like the money to do it properly. And um, yeah, and I'd love to go over there for like a few shows and stuff like that and see how I go and see how it all fares out. And
yeah.
even if nothing pans out, hey, you experienced it.
I think I sort of like the way that a lot of guys have gone over there and like crewed for like
Yeah,
not necessarily a year, but they'll go over for a stint in crew and just see the way like everything sort of operates.
I think that's the best way to
Like,
do it.
yeah,
Get
and
your
like
name out there.
and even like being on the road for like some of the stuff that they do too. Like there's probably a fitness to that to a degree
Yeah.
too for like some of the like the way those shows run. Like you're running up and down the road. Like there's a different realm to the way
Oh,
we do stuff here.
it's hugely different. Like where they race multiple nights in like 1 week, and it would be it would be something that would be physically demanding. Like between
Definitely, yeah.
racing and especially doing it like you see a lot of the bigger teams do it, but they've got truck drivers, they've got
Yeah,
people like crew that wash the car and the driver sleeps and stuff like that. And so, like, you got to give credit to those smaller dudes that just do it off their own back. And
yeah,
they're up till like all hours of the morning, clean the car, and they get in, they
yeah.
drive, sleep, get up, race. Like, that'd be awesome.
One of the things I have like heaps of respect for is someone like Timers who's just like just a gun for hire. Like he'll be racing somewhere on a night and then he's racing somewhere else, like hundreds of miles away the next day. And it's like he'll just be back to running a Sunday show for like some local guy or
Yeah,
something. Like he just does it for like the love of it. Like it's not, yeah, he's not like back into like the $1 million Winnebago thing and traveling down the road.
yeah, and that's where like I think that's awesome. Like
Yeah,
just racing, like that's essentially what I'm in it for. I just love racing and diehard racer, and so I don't not in it for the money or for the glamorous life of it or trophies or anything. Like I just something about racing where it's just awesome. I feel at most peace when I'm highly stressed, like
yeah,
at racetracks
yeah.
and stuff like that. It's just something about it where it's like,
So that's where that's where your brain's at, and
yeah,
being an engineer as well. Like that's
it's yeah, I don't know. Engineering was a part of it, and it's always that typical thing where it's like, oh, you got to get a good job as a backup and stuff like that. And so I went and did engineering because I originally thought like if I was never going to be good enough, I could at least do engineering and get on a race team or like a supercar team or someone. And then the more you get older, the more you learn about it is like it seems glamorous from the outside, but being an engineer on a race team would be absolutely boring because like yeah, you're just at the office all the time, like, unless you're like a race engineer and you get to go to the track and stuff like that. But
yeah.
even then, like you got to sacrifice all your life to do it for that.
So
And
what sort of engineering are you like in?
so I do mechanical, but I did mechanical and mechatronic, which is sort of like automation and robotics and stuff like that at school.
Yeah,
But at the moment, I just work as a mechanical engineer, just doing pretty simple stuff. Because I sort of go to work, do work, then think about racing at work, and then think about what I got to do on the race car, and go home.
yeah,
Um, yeah, it's sort of there's benefits to it because I guess you learn some stuff at uni that can be helpful, just in terms of like the race car and especially how to think about the race car in terms of what it's doing. I think it's helped me develop a little bit quicker, just to give me a bit more of an understanding of it. But yeah, other than that, I was just design little machines and stuff like that and help mines and stuff like that. It's
yeah.
all
Right.
my day to day exists of.
So me and Jack spoke about it, and with you being like the budget racer, where do you think? Well, I know what I think. The motors in these, where do you like if these go to like LS? Is that like someone like you's out?
It's hard, right? Because there's I don't know. This might ruffle feathers, but in my opinion, I think there's too many categories.
Yeah,
I think too many categories in speedway. You're killing your own sport by dividing it so much. Um, and I get there's people out there that like certain things, and like I get people love their divisions they're in.
yeah,
And that's what keeps all those little divisions alive. But I think I think you could make the sport better and more denser if you reduce the number of classes. And it's one of those like this whole LS V6 debate. Like I don't really have too much to do with it because I I just I don't know. I'm just a guy that just wants to race, and I don't like to get involved in the politics.
yeah,
If you were to ask for my opinion,
yeah.
I think it's going to be you can't put them together. Like I caught wind of a rumor
Oh no,
that
no.
I
There's
caught
no.
wind of a rumor that they were going to like limit the V8 and let you do a little bit more with the V6. So that never work. Because like that's so open to interpretation, you've got no idea. But I think it needs to evolve at some point. Because V6 Commodore stuff isn't going to last forever.
No, well, like
Um,
me and Jack were talking too. Like like that motor come out in a road car like 35 years ago.
oh, dude, I'll show you this motor after this. We normally bought that motor from some bloke in Blanchetown, and we got it back, and I spent a day like peeling mud off of it and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And
So I think like that motor was on the road 35 years ago, and then before Holden even got that, America was using them for like 50 years.
yeah,
So it's like, it's
we-
getting long in the tooth.
we're gonna run out eventually, and
Jack's saying it's hard to buy like
oh, I could only
engine.
imagine. He's probably got a little bit more to do with it because he does a lot more himself.
Yeah.
I'm sort of a bit more of a broad. I'm still sort of learning about it, yes, myself. But I think I look at it and I don't really want to ruffle feathers, but I don't quite get the why we can't have V8s in Australia. Because I'm pretty sure those super rod things V8s and they've just got like that fiberglass shell.
Yeah.
Um, pretty sure if I pretty sure if I dump one of them things like fiberglass would do next to bugger all.
Yeah.
But I think the idea that they have, if you could somehow wean out V6 racing into like an LS form and keep it budget, that would probably be like a good way of going about it. But the thing is, you don't want these LSs to end up like 410s. Like
Yeah.
that's like and like we spoke about, if people have the money they're willing to spend, like
Don't do it. Yeah.
you can probably. I got really no idea about these LSs, but I suppose you could trick them up pretty well. Um, but I do like where they're going in the terms of you could create like your LS engine and have a non-wing category, but then you can also have a winged category because I think that's a great stepping stone. Because like I'm only talking about stuff that I've sort of heard. So like this isn't hard facts, but racing 360s by the sounds of it is no cheaper than racing 410s these days.
Yeah.
Like I don't know how much an engine costs, but like what they're doing to the engines and the how the class of the engines that's coming out. I don't think that if you were to go race a 360, it's any more of a stepping stone than just go racing a 410.
Yeah.
Like yes, your speed's different. But when you go to little tracks, like I've never raced a sprint car, but does it really matter at little tracks? Because you're trying to slow the car down anyway.
Yeah. It's pretty common, like guys will run a 360 at like Mount Gambier against 410s and
Yeah,
stuff like that. Like,
and that's what I mean. Like you're effectively you're eliminating your grassroots aspect of it and your stepping stones. Um, and like I'm a firm believer in stepping stones and not just going to like some people can hack it. I can't. I got to work my way up, and it's just
yeah.
you learn stuff as you go through different categories. That when you get to the like for me personally, I want to learn as much as I can. So if you ever did get a shot at a sprint car, you not make a fool of yourself.
Yeah.
And so I think the LS it has potential, but obviously I don't make the decisions. I just race them.
I think like even so I'm a bit of a nerd in a sense. I've like read the engine rule book to sprint
Yeah.
cars, and it's not actually limited to V8s, funnily enough.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like you can do like if you wanted to put a wing on this and run that against 410s, you're more than like I'm gonna have to double check that.
Yeah.
I might get smashed for that. But yeah,
Oh,
yeah. Because a few years ago, there was someone building a Barra Turbo sprint car, and they basically got told, like, you're not, no. But it's technically in the rule book there that you
it's all
can.
poppy syndrome.
Yeah. So,
Don't make it confusing, champ. Get it?
yeah. Like, I just don't know, like, where do you go? Where do you go after this? Like,
I think that's the question I'm
no,
trying to rack on my brain
there's
now.
like,
Like,
what six cylinder do you use? Like, look
yeah,
at the Barra. Look how old the Barra is now. And I don't know the weights per se, but I'm just assuming that how big and long the Barra is, it's not going to work in this chassis.
no,
It's like too tall. It's too long. It's not. But what
yeah,
other V6 do you? There's no other V6 on the market
yeah.
anymore.
Without,
The only
yeah,
other brand new V6 that's out there, and I can't imagine there's a whole heap of them in the wreckers and stuff like that, is the Kia V6.
yeah, and like,
And
and then
I
when you
think
go,
that's like quad cam and all that sort of stuff,
yeah, and it's absolutely a nightmare. But like,
maintenance and stuff.
oh, yeah, for maintenance, but like, just like if one of these, um, like what I do, I check majority of my own engine and stuff like that. Let alone if you start getting sensors and stuff that's on all these new cars and the electronics and
Yeah,
it just makes it so difficult. Like, yeah, the electronics on these things are annoying enough, let alone like adding more to that.
yeah,
That's like in a sense why I love sprint cars because it's so mechanical. Like there's very limited electrical to it. And like this, we're very fortunate that obviously the design of it really limits the amount of electrical that is on the car. Because like there's nothing worse than trying to find like electrical faults and stuff like that.
yeah.
It's so frustrating.
Yeah. All right, Tyson.
Easy
I
as.
wish you all the best next season, and
Thank you.
yeah,
See how we go.
we'll definitely see you around, and yeah, we'll definitely sit down for another one of these
Yeah,
soon.
I reckon. Definitely. Thanks for
Yeah,
having me. Appreciate it.
easy done. Cheers, man.
Beautiful.